Whether you have a diagnosis or not, I don't care. Jump inside this podcast and I'm going to teach you how to read your own blood work so you can find the answers to your health concerns. Yes, those normal labs that your doctor keeps saying, oh, they look great, we'll see you again in 6 months. They really have answers in them if you know how to read it correctly. So come join me along this journey, leave a review, and share with your friends. Let's dive in. What health coaching certification program do I recommend? I get this question asked all the time. Well, I've finally vetted them out, and the one program that outshines all others is Functional Diagnostic Nutrition, or FDN. There are 3 reasons why. 1, it's very clinically based and teaches labs. I myself turned down a master's degree in functional medicine because it didn't teach labs. 2, you have lifetime access and it always gets updated. This is important because things change and you need to be in the know. 3, when you complete the training on your timeline, they have an incredible post-grad community. So they don't just kick you out on the streets and say, good luck. If you've been thinking about receiving your health coaching certification or are a practitioner looking to branch out and scale a virtual practice, now is the time. Make 2023 your year. Do this for you, your family, and those you're about to help. Go to fdntraining.com/Dr. Kylie. Check the show notes for a $250 off code available for a limited time. I am happy to announce that I have partnered with Functional Diagnostic Nutrition because I love their program so much. They are now the podcast sponsor. All right, let's get into the podcast episode. Here we go. Welcome to Beyond the Diagnosis with Dr. Kylie. I'm your host. We've got another very, very special guest. And when I saw her post this on Facebook, I was like, oh my gosh, I need your story. I need to know how you came out of it. Rachel was found herself in a hospital bed being told that she needed to say goodbye to everybody. Rachel, take over.
Thank you so much, Kylie. I'm very appreciative and grateful to be here for so many reasons, and for you too. Basically, I fell 100 times learning how to snowboard and had no idea. I had a helmet on and false sense of security, and got back a week later and did not know what was happening around me. And just to make my mother happy, I went to get a CAT scan thinking it was no big deal. And they literally came back like within seconds and said, kiss your kids goodbye. I had my youngest son with me, and send us your will. And you have a fatal subdural hematoma, traumatic brain injury, and there's an ambulance to take you to the trauma center, but it's been too long. So
wait, there wasn't like just one big event?
No.
It was just multiple over and over and over?
Exactly. It was like a long weekend to learn how to snowboard. So I'm not competitive with others, but I'm very competitive with myself. And I was like, I'm going to get down this hill if it's the last thing I do. But I really didn't mean it. And I had no idea. I'm not really a winter sports person. So I thought I had a helmet on. I was good. And it's not the truth. So, so I said goodbye. They said it in front of my youngest son. It was pretty traumatic for him.
How old was he at the time?
He was 9.
Oh, geez.
He was 9. And literally they said, you need to find him a ride and kiss him goodbye. And drew like the injury on the gurney and said, this is the bleed and you're not going to make it. So 3 days later, I found myself still in ICU. And they had, prepped me for surgery. Thankfully, they hadn't shaved my head yet. But, and I was just waiting. And then eventually, they said it reabsorbed mysteriously and sent me to the top neurologist team. And they had me in a crazy making physical therapy for my head and said they cannot work with me without resetting my brain, which involved a lot of medications, and all of them had a side effect of suicide. And my trainer at the time reached out and said he had watched the movie Concussion, and it's 12 NFL players who suffered the exact same injury and they all committed suicide. And it's a true story. And
Yeah, it's Will Smith, right?
yeah, and I was too afraid after hearing that. I'm not really a medicine person, anyways, but for sure that was it. I wasn't going to take it. And the doctors basically said, "We can't help you." And I understood the suicide because with a brain injury, you don't want to die. You just need to stop the insanity. Like you feel like you're going crazy. And they sent me home and they said, "You're good luck. You'll be lucky to get back 60% of any kind of life yet without resetting the brain and doing all this crazy making stuff."
Oh, no surgery, no meds.
Mm-mm.
You said, I'm going to do this. Just watch me.
I was like, okay, literally, like, this is not the hill I'm going to die on. And I went home, and probably for the next like 6 months, I couldn't really drive more than a mile, and I had 24/7 people handling everything, and I the only thing I could do was look at pictures. I couldn't read, I couldn't listen to music, I couldn't engage or talk like I normally would. Nothing on the screen. And so I literally would sit on the floor and I would cut out pictures and make collages. And I was going to boxing still because I felt like maybe the hand-eye coordination would be good for the brain. You make up stories to, to justify whatever. And it was on the way back one day that I actually suffered a TIA, which is like a mini stroke. And I pulled to the side of the road, and someone had given me the number, unbeknownst at the time, but it was a holistic neurologist. It was a chiropractor of neurology. And I called him on the side of the road. I couldn't smile. And my dad said, "Oh my God, you're having a stroke." And I sat on the side of the road with him for 90 minutes. And by the time I hung up the phone, he said, I can fix it. I can help you. You're going to have to commit to coming every day, every single day, 6 days a week. And it's about 3 hours of therapy. And
Wow.
he said, "But I know I can help you." So I called my 80-year-old father. And I mean, I always prided myself on being so self reliant. And that was another blessing and lesson that came out of the accident. And I had no other choice. I needed someone to drive me there every day. It was almost an hour away, 3 hours of physical therapy, and then an hour back home. And then, and 3 days in, Kylie, he literally said, my dad said, I you're like already a different person. And he said, he started crying. Here I'm like so mortified that I have to depend on my 80-year-old dad to be driving and waiting and. And then he would go get my kids from school and he said, "This has been the biggest gift." He said, "You've given me purpose and a reason to get up and feel like I'm a part of something and contribution." And I mean, it was changed our whole relationship. So asking for help was a big lesson that came out of it. But you know what, Kylie? I am a single mom with 3 kids. They are my world. This was the first time, the accident was the first time in my whole life I had been a stay at home mom. I was the breadwinner when I was married. And that was my will. There was like no way I was going to leave these kids. And I just felt like I hadn't even scratched the surface. Like I have so much more to do still. And the craziest part about it, and this is where you and I connected, was that I can find a diamond in the biggest pile of poop. I mean, I am just have that perspective, thankfully, that I was born with. But I never realized that mindset could affect your health in the way that it did. And on a recent interview with my neurologist, they asked him how what made Rachel's injury different from, 96% of all the other people who either commit suicide or end up in an assisted living home. And he said 100% mindset. He said she was not going to accept when we told her, you're going to have to take it easy and you're not going to be able to do certain things. He said she wouldn't accept that. And we were there to support her. So that was amazing to me. And I do believe wholeheartedly, Kylie, that what you believe dictates your thoughts and your processing and your behavior. And once you believe it, it's really, really hard to disrupt that. And I just want to be the example of what's possible for people to not get stuck in that place. And
We've been told one of my favorite things about your story was, I mean, you could have had the best treatments in the world. You could have done surgery. You could have taken medications. You could have done all the things. One, you chose not to. And two, what you just said is, I would not accept what they told me.
100%. But I want to tell you something crazy that happened since you and I first spoke about this, was that, the one thing that my doctor told me, and we've discussed, and you and I have discussed, is sometimes, the media feeds into the negativity of like, well, if you have this, if you look up even the CDC for traumatic brain injury, it's like 26% live. And the rest of the people commit suicide. They're in assisted I mean, there's a list. But in addition to that, it's real. My doctor told me that it's very common, my holistic neurologist, that for people to take this on as an identity, it becomes like a thing. And I didn't really understand it until, so when I had my accident, my accident, they told me that it wasn't safe for me to drive, okay? More than like within a mile. And I experienced it. I would get road rage and I literally would get pulled over by the police. So I really didn't drive more than to the gym and home. And I went on the highway, a year or two later, and I got all turned around. And so I was like, okay, I can't drive. I need to listen to what they're saying. Okay. Now, this is 5 years post accident, and it's still, an ongoing process. But I have lived in a new city in LA for 1 year, coming up on 1 year. I've never gone on the highway. I only drive local. And recently, a friend challenged me. I kept saying, I don't go on the highway. I can't drive on the highway. Challenged me and said, when are you going to be ready to try it? So I said, you know what? I'm ready. And I drove over an hour to Newport Beach, and it was the most amazing, freeing thing. And it's like, and then it just reinforced, you know, it's like the story of the elephant. Did you ever hear that story where, like, when the elephants are little, they're held to the tent or whatever by a string, and as they get older, people, they still have the little string around them, and they don't try to get away because they've been conditioned to think that they can't. And that just, I was embarrassed. I said, I can't believe here I am, teaching radical resilience and what you believe. And I was stuck in that place. And I just can't, I don't want people, we have one life, you know? Like, don't get stuck in the place, and don't let your mindset. There's been so many people, Kylie, that I've met who had similar injury or worse or not as bad. And because they said no to what they don't know, KNOW, I've seen them. I mean, their life is not the same anymore. So I'm just asking your audience, whether they're on board or not, just stay open. I mean, this is it, like, as far as we know, right? And I I want to be the example so people don't give up.
And I don't say this very often out loud, but it's like, I want to live a life of extraordinary. I don't want to live ordinary.
100%.
And if I want to live ordinary, then I'm going to listen to what people say as conditioning. I refuse. I'm the same as you, which is why we probably resonate so much. But I saw you in New York, and I mean, we were in downtown Manhattan. You can navigate Manhattan just fine.
Because I lived there
But
for 10 years.
oh, I didn't know that.
And you just get in the
But
back of an Uber, I mean, you don't drive in Manhattan, really,
yeah,
typically.
I do the subways. I'm country girl. I don't do those big city things. So it was like 5 days of Manhattan to me. Is like, holy smoke. Okay, take me on the airplane, take me back home. This is great, but it's New York. But you said a couple of key points where it's like you can listen to them and you can do everything that they say, or you can refuse and say, I'm not going to accept this as my terminal. This is not who I am.
Mhm.
This is not what my life is going to be like. And then you went and found something else. But not only did you get that treatment, you were surrounded by people who supported you, and they
100%.
just encourage, like, okay, you set your mind to it, let's go.
Right. You know what's crazy, Kylie? I always think about, imagine if the doctors said, like, I would always get so mad when I would hear someone was given like a life sentence, like, you have this long to live, or I was like, how do they know? Imagine if a doctor, instead of saying, kiss your son goodbye, you have a fatal brain injury. I was still like alive at that point. Imagine if he said, girl, you got this. Like, you fight like there is never been a fight, and you're going to see your son next week, and we're going to do everything we can to help you. Instead of like, they're telling me, like, of course. I was like, I probably can't say it on the podcast, but I was like, I don't think so. you know but just imagine the flip, because people, when, if they're, especially when you're in a trauma state, and maybe you're not even in the right mindset, just because you're so fearful and it's the unknown, and you hang on to that, you just give up.
Yeah. And it's that way with everything. It's that way. Like, for example, I like to talk about money because that's been my biggest hurdle, is overcoming those money traumas that I didn't even know existed. But it's like my family, I won't name names, but they're like, well, I'm never going to be able to afford that house. I'll never have that house. Like, dude, change the story. If
100.
you tell yourself that, it's going to become reality.
Totally.
And that's
Totally.
basically what it comes down to, is whether you have, I mean, if you keep telling everybody, oh, I have Hashimoto's, that is your identity.
Totally.
And you're going to take that with you to the grave. And no matter what kind of treatments you do, you're not going to get better. Because
100%.
you keep telling yourself, that you keep telling your body, oh, I can't do that because I have Hashimoto's, or I have this because I have Hashimoto's. Like, flip the story and say, I fought this
Yes.
I'm going to win it. Or better yet, put yourself in the matter of 5 years ahead when you already have won it. Be that person that doesn't have Hashimoto's. Be that person who beat autoimmune disease. And Rachel, surround yourself with the people who agree with you, who want to support that journey.
Hmm.
I've seen it from multiple patient standpoints where they want to do everything they can to get better. And yet they go home to the most toxic environment
Well,
where their loved ones are not on board
so
because
important.
they've accepted the diagnosis for their so and so for their family member, and now they're just going to live it. And I've literally had to stop helping patients because I can't fight that fight for them.
Right.
We can give them all the best treatment in the world, but if they're getting fed crap into their head,
Listen, what's it called? I think is it called dysatonia?
this auto, this, this auto, yeah, I know what
Where they
you're going
believe,
for.
do you know that I speak to my doctor on a regular basis, dysautonomia or something, where he has treated, he said just in the past month, 3 children have come in to his office, and the parent or whoever the caretaker is has keep telling them, you can't, you're this, you're that, like, and they're fine, but they believe that they're not, and they keep them in, the people around them in that state, and
Conditioned.
it's so scary because I even see it with some older relatives in my family, and everyone around is saying, you can't do this and you can't do that and you can't do this, it's not. And then I'm like, what? Wait, what? You're like doing all these other things? Like, even if you can't, tell yourself, don't tell yourself you can't, right? Like, just, you know, keep going as long as you can. And then, but it's not about can or can. It's like, it's probably not a good idea right now, maybe, but, and I reached out to my daughter last night. She's my oldest. And I said, give me the top 3 to 5 lessons that you learned from me, which, is the biggest compliment ever when your kids like actually give you credit for something. And one of them was, do not ever take no or allow somebody to determine your destiny. I always told my kids that if you want something badly enough. And that's pretty much the name of, my program and my book is, it's your decisions, not your conditions, that will ultimately determine your destiny. And I've never believed in it more. And, talking to you was just so refreshing as a doctor you know, to be on the same page. You have the biggest gift to give to your patients, just being in that positive place.
Yeah, we need more of it. Because, like you said earlier, like, what if the doctor came to me and said, you got this? We're next to you for the next week. Like, we're going to do everything we can versus, oh, by the way, you're going to die. See ya.
Right, totally. And you know what?
Yeah.
It was 18 months, and I'm still doing, I get in a place sometimes, but I know what to do. They gave me the tools, and the tools are not take a pill. The tools are, put peppermint oil on the roof of your mouth, or, put headphones on and listen to this app. And it's just like a hum, or go to a hypobaric oxygen chamber. I mean, like that, I'm like a different person. I know what to do. They gave me the tools, and I've never taken a pill for it. And, you know, I heard my doctor also say in a recent interview that people, a lot of times, he'll be the last stop on the totem pole, and they'll say, well, my kid's been taking this medicine for 3 years and he's still not better. And, but they're not open to this. But he's like, well, if they're not better, why are you here?
Why are you still doing it? It doesn't matter. I've heard it so many times. Like, I've been taking my thyroid medicine for 20 years and I don't think it makes it. Then why are you doing it? They were told. They were told that they have to be on this forever to just manage their symptoms. When there's a whole nother way, but you have to be willing to leave the conditioning behind, open up your mind, and get the right people around you that are going to support you on that journey. I work with a lot of autoimmune, and that's one of the biggest pieces. Like, I can get you so far, but if you're surrounded by people who only see you as MS, or only see you as Parkinson's, or only see you as chronic fatigue, or whatever the story is,
I mean, I have goosebumps.
You're wasting your dollars.
I have goosebumps. It's so true. Or people say, oh, I can't, I have IBS, or I have, what's the other one with the joint?
IBD. Rheumatoid arthritis.
That, and then there's another one that everybody, they used to, I feel like it was just like,
fibromyalgia.
Yes. I'm just like, no, I don't even think it's a thing. I think it's a thing when they don't know what else to tell you.
We're going to have a whole entire another podcast on that exact topic, on that exact diagnosis, because I'm right there with you.
That's why I always joke around and I'm like, I don't listen to the news. I mean, if I need to know something, I trust someone's going to tell me, or I'll see it on social media.
Okay, so fibromyalgia, we won't walk down that road unless we want to record another episode specifically on it. But if people, as we've talked about, how powerful your brain is and how powerful your mindset is, give the audience like one of your biggest key tips to shifting that head talk.
Your brain cannot tell the difference if something is really happening or not. And there's so many amazing books on this right now, but it's the truth. So, your mindset, it's a 24-hour thing. You have to pay attention. And for me, I'm visual. And so I, read it out loud every day. I look at my vision board. But in addition to what you said earlier with surrounding yourself with the right people, you have to protect your environment in every way. From anything negative, you need to stay away from. You get to decide. And so that is the second step in the Radical Resiliency 5 steps is you have to accept the situation, and then you get to decide whether you're going to live with this or not.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, Rachel, where can they learn more about you?
RachelRose.live. And I have a free blueprint to reclaim your power and your positivity and your possibility. You need to stay positive. If you want a positive outcome, you have to start with a positive outlook.
All right, guys, go grab it. RachelRose.live.
Thank you, Kylie.
Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you so much.
The health coaching certification program that I recommend is Functional Diagnostic Nutrition, or FDN. You can get started anytime. So grab the $250 off code from the show notes and go to fdntraining.com/Dr. Kylie and get started. Don't wait any longer. Make 2023 your year. Do this for you, your family, and for those you're about to help. fdntraining.com/Dr. Kylie. Ready to have all of your blood work compiled in one location where you can easily read it all together? Well, go grab my book, Why Are My Labs Normal, on Amazon. Grab it, learn how to read your own labs, and take the power back in your hands, because your normal blood work is loaded with answers. You just got to have the right person reading it, and the right person can be you. Go grab it on Amazon, Why Are My Labs Normal by Dr. Kylie Burton. Leave a review, and we'll see you on the next episode.